When I stumbled across the DVDs, I wasn't snooping. Let's get that clear. If you're thinking of me as some paranoid husband rummaging through his wife's belongings, you're wrong. I was organizing the closet in our guest bedroom because Ellen had been nagging me for weeks. Too much clutter, she'd said, with that dismissive wave of her hand. So there I was, knee-deep in forgotten junk, cursing under my breath, when I noticed the shoebox tucked behind a pile of winter coats. It was nothing special at first glance. Just a beat-up Nike box, the kind you'd toss out without a second thought. But when I opened it, a chill clawed its way down my spine. Inside were DVDs, dozens of them, each labeled in neat black marker with names that sent my pulse skyrocketing. Eric, neighbor; Dave, Jim; Amy, best friend. And, for some reason, that sent my mind spiraling. Spot, dog. My hands shook as I picked one up. It didn't feel real, like some sick joke Ellen might play. But she wasn't the type for practical jokes. No, Ellen was the picture of sophistication. Meticulous in her work as a paralegal, quick to correct grammar at dinner parties, and unfailingly proper in public. A woman who, I thought, wouldn't know how to spell scandal, let alone partake in one. I closed the box and stared at it for what felt like hours. My first instinct was to confront her immediately, but something stopped me, a gnawing curiosity. What the hell was on those DVDs? That night, after Ellen had gone to bed, I crept into the living room. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might wake her. I shoved the first disc into the player. The TV screen flickered and my stomach clenched as the footage began. It wasn't what I expected. I had braced myself for something risque. Maybe Ellen in compromising positions, indulging in some secret affair. But the reality was stranger, more sinister. The first DVD featured Eric, our overly friendly neighbor, shirtless and laughing in our backyard. It was filmed from an odd angle, almost voyeuristic. Then the camera turned, and there was Ellen, behind the lens, giggling softly. It was unsettling, not erotic, not innocent, but something that didn't sit right. The second disc was more unnerving. Dave, the guy I occasionally sparred with at the gym, was filmed mid-workout. Sweaty and oblivious, the camera zoomed in on him for far too long, lingering on his strained expressions. Again, Ellen's faint laugh accompanied the footage, chilling me to the core. Disc after disc revealed a pattern. People we knew, unaware they were being filmed, caught in private or vulnerable moments. Amy's DVD showed her crying on her couch, clutching a wine glass. Another featured a coworker of mine, Tom, fixing his tie in a bathroom. But then I reached the one labeled Spot. My hands were slick with sweat as I pushed it into the player. The screen stayed black for a moment before flickering to life. At first it seemed harmless, just our neighbor's golden retriever, wagging its tail in their backyard. But then the camera tilted, and I saw Ellen crouching, holding out a raw steak. Spot hesitated before inching closer. What happened next made my stomach churn. Ellen didn't just feed Spot. She petted him, spoke in hushed tones I couldn't make out, and then did something I'll never be able to erase from my memory. She pulled out a needle and injected the dog with something. Spot whimpered and collapsed moments later. Ellen calmly collected the steak and left, leaving the lifeless body behind. I stopped the DVD, bile rising in my throat. What the hell was this? Ellen had always seemed distant with animals, never showing any particular fondness for them, but this was psychotic. My mind reeled as I tried to piece it together. The secret recordings, the eerie behavior, the utter lack of remorse. I thought it couldn't get worse. The final DVD wasn't labeled with a name. It simply said, "For you." My fingers trembled as I loaded it. This one was different. Ellen was in front of the camera now, staring directly at me. She looked calm, almost smug. "Hi, darling," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "If you've made it this far, I guess you couldn't resist. Curiosity is such a dangerous thing, isn't it?" She smiled, and it wasn't her usual polite smile. This one was predatory. "I know you think you know me, but you don't. Not really. You're predictable, though, which is why I'm recording this. You'll watch every last one, won't you? You'll dig and dig, trying to find some grand revelation, and by the time you do, it'll already be too late. The screen cut to black. I didn't sleep that night. By dawn, I'd packed a bag and gone to a lawyer's office. Over the next week, I had the DVDs cataloged, copied, and stored as evidence. When I confronted Ellen, her reaction was chilling. She didn't deny anything. She didn't even look surprised. "Did you like my collection?" she asked, sipping her coffee as if we were talking about the weather. "Some of my best work." I filed for divorce the same day and sued her for emotional damages, citing the recordings as evidence of her mental instability and invasion of privacy. The lawyer said it was an uphill battle, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. The $1 million suit was as much about principle as it was about ruining her. But as I sit here, months later, staring at the empty side of the bed, I wonder if I'll ever truly escape her. Ellen wasn't just a liar or a cheater. She was a predator, and I'd been her prey for years, without even realizing it. I still hear her voice sometimes, echoing in my head. Curiosity is such a dangerous thing. The court battle was supposed to be my redemption, my moment to expose Ellen for the monster she truly was. I had the DVDs. I had her chilling confession on tape. I had everything I needed to not only divorce her, but destroy her reputation in the process. But as the days turned into weeks, the tides began to shift in ways I couldn't have imagined. Ellen, with her immaculate composure and crocodile smile, spun the narrative like a master weaver. "My husband," she said on the stand, voice trembling just enough to convince the jury, "has always been paranoid, controlling. This is just his latest delusion." She had evidence, fabricated but damning nonetheless. Emails I'd supposedly sent to her coworkers, accusing them of affairs. A fake therapist's note claiming I'd once threatened her during an argument. And the DVDs? Her lawyer flipped the script. "It's obvious these were tampered with, Your Honor. My client is clearly the victim of an elaborate, obsessive smear campaign." I felt the ground beneath me crumble. She'd anticipated everything. The jury ate up her performance like it was gospel. My lawyer, a bulldog in his own right, pushed back hard. But Ellen didn't crack. She leaned into every question, painting herself as a victim of my so-called paranoia and emotional abuse. The verdict? She walked away with the house, half my savings, and the sympathy of everyone in the courtroom. I was left with nothing but a few boxes of clothes and a suffocating rage that burned in my chest like acid. Months passed, but the bitterness didn't fade. I moved into a dingy apartment downtown, working double shifts just to keep afloat. Everywhere I went, I felt eyes on me, whispering, judging. Ellen's story had spread like wildfire. Friends, coworkers, even my own family started pulling away. The worst part? I couldn't let go of the DVDs. I watched them obsessively, trying to find some new angle, some hidden clue I'd missed. But each viewing only deepened my despair. Ellen had outplayed me at every turn. Then, one night, the despair turned into something else. It turned into fury. I knew where she lived, my old house. She'd remodeled it, of course. The bright blue door I'd painted myself was now a soulless gray. The garden we'd tended together was overrun with expensive but lifeless landscaping. And there she was, sitting on the porch with a glass of wine, laughing with someone I didn't recognize. A man. My hands clenched into fists. All those nights of smiling, lying, gaslighting, and she was already moving on like I'd never existed. Something inside me snapped. The first confrontation came 2 weeks later. I waited until her new lover, a tall, smug-looking guy named Grant, was leaving for the night. I followed him to his car and stepped out of the shadows as he unlocked the door. "Grant, is it?" I asked, my voice low and calm. He froze, then turned to face me. "Who the hell are you?" "Just someone who thought you should know the truth about Ellen." Grant frowned. "What are you talking about?" I pulled a single DVD from my pocket, the one labeled Grant that I'd found on her desk just days before. "Watch this," I said, shoving it into his hands. "Then we'll talk." I didn't wait for his response. I walked away, my pulse pounding with satisfaction. If Ellen thought she could move on unscathed, She was about to learn otherwise. A week later, Grant showed up at my apartment. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "You were right," he said, his voice shaking. She filmed me. She's insane." I nodded grimly. "Now you see what I've been dealing with." "She's dangerous," he added, his face pale. "She tried to convince me I was imagining things when I confronted her. I don't even know what's real anymore." For the first time in months, I felt a spark of vindication. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. The night I decided to confront Ellen directly, I came prepared. I knew she wouldn't go down without a fight. I waited until she was alone, sitting in the living room with her glass of wine. I didn't bother with the doorbell. I let myself in with the spare key she'd forgotten to change. She didn't hear me until I was standing in the doorway. When she saw me, her smile faltered. "Well, well," she said, setting her glass down. "Look who finally grew a spine." "You ruined my life," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "You lied to everyone. And for what? Your sick little games?" She shrugged, unbothered. "Oh, please. Don't act like you're some innocent victim. You were always so predictable, so boring. You should thank me for spicing things up." That was it. I lunged at her, grabbing the wine glass and hurling it across the room. It shattered against the wall, red liquid dripping like blood. Ellen stood her ground, her eyes flashing with fury. "You think this is going to fix anything?" she spat, shoving me back. "You're pathetic." The fight escalated quickly. She was smaller than me, but she fought like a cornered animal, kicking, scratching, clawing at my face. I didn't care. The years of pent-up anger and betrayal boiled over, and I slammed her against the wall. "You don't get to win," I snarled, my hand tightening around her wrist. But she just laughed, even as her lips split and blood trickled down her chin. "You'll never beat me," she hissed. "Even now, you're exactly where I want you." That was when I noticed the security camera in the corner, its red light blinking steadily. She'd been recording the whole thing. By the time the police arrived, Ellen was sobbing on the floor, cradling her arm like I'd broken it. The officers didn't care about my side of the story. All they saw was a man who'd broken into his ex-wife's house and attacked her. Ellen smiled at me as they dragged me away, her face streaked with fake tears. "You're right," she whispered as I was shoved into the squad car. "Curiosity is a dangerous thing." Revenge wasn't an impulse anymore. It became a purpose, a cold, calculated plan that consumed every waking moment. Sitting in my cell, the days dragged into weeks, and the world outside moved on without me. Ellen, as expected, played the victim perfectly. Her crocodile tears splashed across local news outlets. A survivor of abuse, they called her. Meanwhile, I became the villain in her perfectly spun narrative. But prison did something unexpected. It sharpened me. Stripped of everything, I found clarity. Ellen thought she'd buried me, but she didn't understand who she'd created in the process. The moment I was released on bail, I vanished. I didn't go home. I had no home. I had no friends, no allies. What I did have was desperation and an unrelenting hatred for Ellen. That was enough. I spent the next few months moving in the shadows, cashing in every favor, selling what little I had left. I needed money, information, and tools. A few questionable deals later, I had a stack of fake IDs, burner phones, and a laptop loaded with everything I needed to start tearing her world apart. The first step was dismantling her reputation. Ellen thrived on appearances. Her polished career, her pristine social circle, her carefully curated lies. I started by hacking into her emails and social media accounts. It wasn't hard. She used the same password for everything. Spot123. A sick joke, no doubt. What I found buried in her inbox was a goldmine. Correspondence with her law firm, detailing shady financial dealings, explicit emails with Grant, sent while she was still married to me, and even a conversation with an underground contact who specialized in forging legal documents. I leaked everything. An anonymous email to her boss with screenshots of her embezzlement scheme. A package to the Bar Association detailing her unethical conduct. Within weeks, she was fired, disbarred, and facing a federal investigation. Her polished reputation crumbled like ash in the wind. But that was just the appetizer. Ellen had a way of controlling people, manipulating them like chess pieces. It wasn't enough to ruin her career. I wanted to destroy the foundation of power she'd built. I started targeting her inner circle, the coworkers who vouched for her during the trial. I mailed them copies of the DVDs featuring Ellen filming them without their knowledge. Amy, her so-called best friend, I sent her a video clip of Ellen mocking her weight and calling her a pathetic drunk. One by one, her allies turned on her, distancing themselves like rats, fleeing a sinking ship. Ellen's new boyfriend, Grant, was next. He thought he'd escaped my wrath, but I wasn't done with him. I sent him an unmarked package containing a single DVD. This time, it wasn't just voyeuristic footage. It was a montage of Ellen's confessions, pieced together from old recordings, spliced to make her admit to unspeakable things. Grant couldn't tell what was real or fake. He left her the same night, blocking her number and disappearing without a word. By now, Ellen must have realized someone was pulling the strings. I imagined her sitting in our old house, seething, her perfect facade cracking under the pressure. But I wasn't finished. The final blow had to be nuclear. I reached out to her underground contact, the one she'd used for forged documents. Posing as Ellen, I requested several falsified legal contracts and incriminating documents, linking her to a high-profile drug smuggling operation. The forger delivered, and I made sure the documents found their way to federal authorities. A week later, the FBI raided her house. The footage of Ellen being dragged out in handcuffs made the evening news. She screamed about being framed, about her innocence. But no one believed her. Why would they? Her life was a series of lies, and I'd made sure no one could tell where the truth ended and the fabrications began. Months passed, and Ellen's fall from grace was complete. She lost the house, her assets were frozen, and her social circle evaporated. She spent her days fighting legal battles she couldn't win, all while drowning in debt. And me? I stayed in the shadows, watching it all unfold. I wasn't done yet. One night I paid her a visit. She was staying in a dingy motel on the edge of town, the kind of place that reeked of despair. I broke in quietly, finding her sitting on the bed, a half-empty bottle of cheap vodka in her hand. She looked up startled, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. "You," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Me," I said, stepping closer. "What do you want?" she demanded, trying to sound defiant, but her voice cracked. "Haven't you done enough?" I laughed. A cold, hollow sound. "Enough? No, Ellen, not even close. But I thought I'd give you the courtesy of knowing why." She tried to stand, but I shoved her back down. "You took everything from me, my reputation, my freedom, my life. And for what? Your twisted games? Your need for control? You're insane," she spat, though her voice was laced with panic. "Maybe," I admitted, "but at least I didn't underestimate you. That was your mistake." Her eyes darted to the door, to the window, but there was no escape. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper. This is just the beginning. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when I'll strike next. And I promise you, Ellen, I will never stop." I left her there, trembling and alone, the bottle slipping from her hand. As I walked away, a strange sense of calm washed over me. Ellen had taught me many things: how to hate, how to fight, how to destroy. But the most important lesson? Curiosity is a dangerous thing. And now it was her turn to wonder. The satisfaction of watching Ellen's life unravel lingered for a while, but it wasn't enough. There was a void, a yawning emptiness that her downfall couldn't fill. She'd been a master manipulator, a puppet master who thrived on control. It wasn't enough to destroy her world. I needed her to feel the depths of her own helplessness. I needed her to know what it meant to truly lose. Weeks passed, and I began my final preparations. Ellen was out on bail for the federal charges, living in limbo as she waited for her trial. The motel she called home was a rundown shell of misery, far removed from the house she'd taken from me. I watched her from afar, noting her patterns, her dwindling routines. The once impeccable paralegal was now a shadow of herself, paranoid, disheveled, and entirely alone. Perfect. It started with small things. Notes slipped under her door at odd hours, each one containing cryptic messages. I see you. TikTok. How's Spot? I used different pens, different handwriting styles to keep her guessing. Then, I began tampering with her surroundings. A knock at the door late at night. No one there when she opened it. Her car keys moved from the table to the bathroom sink. The motel's power mysteriously cutting out at random intervals. It didn't take long for her to unravel. I watched from the shadows as she screamed at the motel clerk one evening, accusing him of letting someone into her room. Her voice cracked, shrill and panicked. The clerk looked at her like she was insane, shaking his head as she ranted about someone watching her. She stumbled back to her room, slamming the door, and I smiled. She was starting to break. The final phase began with a delivery, a small, nondescript package left at her door. Inside was a single DVD, unlabeled, along with a note, "For your eyes only." I imagined her hands trembling as she loaded it into the motel's cheap DVD player. The screen would flicker to life, showing footage of her sleeping, filmed from inside her room, her breath hitching as the camera slowly zoomed in on her face, the sound of her own soft snores filling the silence. The footage would end abruptly, cutting to black with a single line of text. "I'm closer than you think." By the time the police arrived, called by a hysterical Ellen, they found nothing. No camera, no sign of forced entry. Just her, rambling about being watched, about someone playing games with her. They didn't believe her. Why would they? She was the woman with a history of manipulating evidence, after all. Her paranoia became public knowledge. Even the people who might have sympathized with her began to distance themselves. She was toxic, a liability, and she knew it. The final confrontation came one stormy night, lightning cracking across the sky as rain battered the motel's thin walls. I let myself in quietly, closing the door behind me with a soft click. Ellen was sitting on the edge of the bed, her head in her hands, a half-empty pill bottle next to her. She didn't notice me at first, too lost in her spiraling despair. When she finally looked up and saw me, she froze. "You," she whispered, her voice raw and hoarse. "Why won't you leave me alone?" I stepped closer, my shadow looming over her. "Leave you alone," I echoed, my voice cold. "You didn't leave me alone. You didn't just ruin my life, Ellen. You stole it. You twisted it, mocked it, and crushed it under your heel. Did you really think I'd just let you walk away?" She tried to stand, but her legs buckled. "You've won," she choked out. "You've taken everything from me. What more do you want?" I crouched in front of her, forcing her to meet my eyes. "I want you to feel what I felt. Every ounce of helplessness, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, wondering what's real and what's in your head. I want you to live with it." Her eyes brimmed with tears, but I didn't care. She reached for the pill bottle, her hands shaking, but I knocked it away. The pills scattered across the floor. "No easy way out," I said, my voice like steel. "You don't get to escape this." She collapsed back onto the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. For the first time, I saw her not as the manipulative, cold-hearted predator who'd torn my life apart, but as something pathetic, weak, a husk of the woman who'd once controlled me so completely. But there was no pity in my heart, only the cold satisfaction of knowing I'd won. I left her there, broken and alone, and disappeared into the night. I didn't look back. Ellen's trial came and went, and the evidence I'd planted sealed her fate. The federal charges stuck, and she was sentenced to 10 years in prison for fraud and forgery. Her name became a punchline, her legacy one of disgrace and humiliation. As for me, I moved far away, changing my name, starting over. The rage that had consumed me for so long was gone, replaced by a quiet, hollow peace. I wasn't a hero, nor did I care to be. What mattered was that Ellen would spend the rest of her life haunted by the ghosts of her own creation. And in the end, that was enough.